What's up guys, it's Drac and I'm in Spidey PJs because I absolutely had to get this out before I do a quick professional visit. So this is a review of this piece. So this is the Eclipse cage from Open Flywheel Project. My friend Phil sent this over. There's been a lot of talk about this cage, and so I felt like somebody with reasonable experience crafting custom Nerf blasters should do an unbiased review of it. So this is the cage. It has been machined out of aluminum. I think it's a solid piece of aluminum. It doesn't look like this is an insert. It looks like this is mated. So that's actually very nice. And I'm filming in 4K so that you can hopefully see all of the details that I can see. Now, I also want to talk about this. Now, this is a 3D printed version of the Eclipse cage so that you could just buy the wheels. The wheels are significantly less expensive than the cage. However, if you are doing so, buy from a reputable seller. I printed these cages for a special project, and if you listen and see here, there's no way this is going to spin freely inside this cage. In fact, it was almost stuck in there. So these printed cages are going to be difficult, not only because the motors that are torquey enough to function with these wheels generate an awful lot of heat, so you'd want to definitely be printing in ABS, probably not PLA, and probably not playing in places that are too hot anyway. So these wheels essentially are called the Eclipse cage because, and I'll be able to show you this in a second, they completely surround the dart. So if I rotate these manually, which is not an accurate simulation of how this is going to work, you can see in here, I'm trying to align this with the GoPro properly, that it really is crushing the head of that waffle tip in there. Like, there is not a lot of room for that to pass through. And then I left a dart in here overnight so that as I extrude it here, you can see that that is about the amount of crush that we're dealing with. So it's seriously pinching these darts to the degree that, so a regular Nerf dart is 50 cal, a Boomco dart, such as this one, is about 40 cal, and the Boomco dart barely, the Boomco dart almost won't fit, I guess is what we're getting at. You can see that we just crimped the straw, so this is now virtually unusable. It's an unusually unusable Boomco dart, but if I try, I don't even think I can get the rubber tip through. That's kind of funky. Let's see if we manually torque these. Maybe? No, it's just not worth it. I'm not going to destroy my only aluminum cage to try and prove something that ultimately isn't relevant. So I have some very special motors that I will be installing in this to test. Let's go ahead and show you what the soldering process stitching these up is. The motors are prototypes, but they should be ultra special and very capable of running these specs. Now, you could also go with a variety of other 180 style cans, but I really want to try these motors because that is how I would like to run my Eclipse. Okay, so some people have talked about the flywheels not being properly balanced, and while I have not tested them on the motor shafts specifically because they are so tight that I really only want to install them once, these ones have some interesting flaws in them. This one has like a chip inside its wheel. I don't know if that's a machining error or what, but I'm going to not use these ones, and instead I've picked out this pair, which I weighed in, and these are the closest to being the same weight, and they are flawless on their machining inside. So that is probably why they're closest to the same weight, but these are the two that we're going to be using, and without any more talking about it, we're going to assemble a loom for these motors into the cage, and to do that, we're going to need itty bitty screws. Let's go. Alrighty, so in this time-lapse segment, I'm giving you a really good look at how to install motors and flywheels into a cage. I don't know if I've ever talked about that explicitly, so we're using just some 130 motors here and these itty-bitty screws, which you can use to screw the motors into the cage first, and once you've got those really tight, you don't necessarily need the silicone pad or the Loctite. Like, you just want to make sure that those are mechanically fastened together and that you are in good shape. So once those are done, you can see that I start to
test, I guess, the polarity of the motors and make sure that they're absolutely in the correct configuration, and you want to know that that's correct before you actually lock those flywheels on. Now, these flywheels were really, really tight, so first I kind of tested to see whether or not they were properly aligned, and then I hammered them into place.
Hey guys, so we're out here in the freezing weather. We're rocking our X-Wing flight hoodie because that is honestly some of the warmest attire that I own. But we've got our Eclipse cage out and it's time to finally put it through its paces. Now I've been testing with it for a little while. I've run 2 separate motor combinations in it. These are the best motors that I've found for something that has this high a crush and needs this much torque. Unfortunately, I can't tell you anything about these motors. That's why they're in a super secret hidden cage, and instead of just testing this on a block, I decided to throw it into a strife shell because it was the only way that I could literally legally talk about this with these motors installed. So I do want to show you a close-up. This has been stitched together with an XT60 connector, and you can see just how tight those tolerances are. Getting a printed cage for these is difficult because of exactly this issue. However, that is minor tolerances, and I brought out a pack of fresh AccuFakes because those are the numbers that people are going to be most interested in. Now, obviously your numbers will vary a little bit, but it's the crush that we're testing and the performance that we're interested in. Again, these are ultra secret motors that will be out pretty soon-ish, and when they do come out, I'll tell you everything about them. But for the time being, the prototypes installed are excellent for a setup like this. So we've also got the proper LiPo. This is a 3S bolt LiPo. The bolt chemistry is ridiculous. Check out that discharge rating. That is pretty insane. Now, there actually isn't a switch on here, so since there isn't a switch, this is things will get loud now, and we will actually move to the chronograph, and I'll show you putting these numbers through. It's going to be kind of a dance of juggling these things, but let's go. Alrighty guys, so you can tell from that, unfortunately, our numbers there are literally the lowest number on the range. I think we got up to 196. The claims for this were going to be the claims were that this was a 200 FPS cage. It looks like the average from that admittedly small sample size is closer to 200, or not 200, 180 or so. Now I do want to talk about though the cost. So if we come over here, picking up just a few of these, I'm seeing I have 3 here that still have their heads intact, but this is 3 darts that have no heads now. And let's set the cage itself aside for a second. Just look at that wear and tear on the darts. So firing at least AccuFakes, which is one of the ways to get decent performance out of this, you are literally destroying your darts. That's at least 3 out of 10 shots, and I think I saw 1 more explode, but it's probably up there somewhere that just died on delivery. So it does get serious performance. However, man, I wish I was doing this inside. The cage does have some issues. The first run of wheels has been sort of soft recalled. Some of the wheels are good. Significant portion of the wheels are bad. So they're actually doing a replacement run of the wheels, and not all of them are perfectly aligned. Not all of them were drilled perfectly. And with something that has such low margin of error here, you really need those wheels to be perfect every time. So is it a good product? Yes, but yes, it's delivering solid performance, but it is so high in FPS, so much crush out of this system that it's destroying the darts, and it has some manufacturing issues. Now, admittedly, this is the first time OFP has brought a product to market like this in any form. So there's a steep learning curve to that, obviously, and it is quite impressive that it functions, I guess, just in general, given how quickly it was brought to market and how it was parts of it were outsourced. I think that I know that the wheels came from China, and I'm pretty sure that the cage itself was also machined overseas, and that can be a delicate game in and of itself. But the cage itself is solid. The wheels have some issues, but this goes to show that at least with these super secret motors, the performance is not all hype. It is legitimately doing those numbers, even if it is destroying 30 to 40% of the ammunition you put through it. However, that's just my take on it. I will link to OFP in the description box below. I will tell you about these motors when they come out in great detail, because I am very excited for them, and that pretty much covers it. But that is a review of this component. Component reviews never, ever do well on YouTube. So if you like this content, if you like seeing the latest and greatest and the newest in tech for this hobby, then please consider leaving me a pleasant comment and giving me a thumbs up on this video. It makes it so much easier for me to justify cranking out these component reviews for you guys, because doing a full build for stuff like this is just exhausting. Now, eventually, this will wind up in a full build, but I'm so burnt on strifes that we're gonna have to give it a minute before we do that. As always, much love, nerf on, Drac out.